Rabbi Casola.
Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, rather, July 5th, 2021. We're having class at the home of Mosseri in New Jersey. And we're going to be looking at the Teshuvah from Hakham Obadiah Yosef from Yehabedah, volume 2, Siman Tayet. It's on page 41. And here's the question. Somebody who has a synagogue in his neighborhood, is he allowed to go to a synagogue that is further away, or is he transgressing the concept of in ma'abidin al mizvot? We do not pass up on a mizvot. In other words, you have a mizvah, you can walk right into the knesset and you're passing on it to go someplace else.
Referring to the actual synagogue structure or a house minyan that could be, let's say, next door and then like a minyan or a synagogue?
We're talking about a synagogue because a house minyan is something that is a very new concept. House minyanim never really existed until our modern day and age. Okay, people lived in a city. People had generally there was one synagogue per city. If you had a larger city with a larger population, so you had many synagogues. Most of them usually were also within the same general neighborhood. And if obviously people were further away from the Jewish population, and then you had, a synagogue over there. You have to remember, for centuries, Jews generally lived near each other. They were afraid to live further away, either with goyim or on the fringes of town where they may be attacked. So you have to keep in mind that society was different in the past than it is today. So let's look at the Teshuvah, and I'm sure different ideas and things will come up. Right away, we're going to see Hakham Obadiah Yosef's answers really jump into it, because we know, like many Hachamim, they already have their answer, and they're basically backing up their answer. So first we have the Gemara. Hakham Obadiah looks at Amar Rabbi Yohanan, Lamadnu kibbutz sachar me'al mana. So there's an issue in the Gemara where there's an almana, a widow, and this is where we learn the concept of getting reward. معاسي بألمنا أحد شهية بيت كنيسة شكونتا فهيتا بقت ندية بكل يوم بيت مدرشوش لبي يوحنان أمر لا لبي يوحنان بتي هريش بيت كنيسة بشكونتيخ فلما التراحت لبو عد هلوم أمر له ربي بدو سخار بسيعود يشلي. Here's the story. There was a widow, and she had a bit knesset in her neighborhood, and she used to go every day to pray in the bit midrash of Rabbi Yohanan. Rabbi Yohanan told her, "My daughter, don't you have a synagogue in your neighborhood? Why do you trouble yourself to come all the way here all the time?" He said, and she told him, "Don't I get sechar pesiyot? Don't I get reward for all the extra steps that I take to come here?" That's the story in the Gemara. ומכאן למד המגן אברהם, שאם יש שני בתי כנסת בעירו, מצווה ללכת לבית הכנסת הרחוק יותר, מפני שיש בזה שכר פסיעות. So the Magen Abraham, quoting this story when he's commenting on the Shulchan Aruch on Siman Sabdi, he says, from this we learned that if there are two synagogues in the city, a person should go to the one that's further away to get that reward of the
should you?
Yeah, he's saying you should.
Right. Question was, can you? He's
Right.
saying you should.
This is what Magen Abraham is saying. Okay. וכן הסכים אליה רבה, and Eliyah Rabbah agreed with him. וכן פסק going to be Zalman, the Shulchan Aruch. Okay. Also. And we learn from this, there's no concept of us passing up on mizvot, because there's a different issue here of sechar pesiyot.
What mitzvah am I here?
We'll get to that. Alma b'chim b'ayim ha'gemara. Alma shishanim. Haroe kohen gadol kishu kore b'yom kippurim enu roe par b'sa'ir h'nisrafim b'kuldeh. ולא מפני שאין הוא רשאי, אלא שהייתה דרך רחוקה, ומלאכת שניהם נעשית ככה. ומקשה הגמרא, לא מפני שאין הוא רשאי, פשיטא, ומשיבה, משום שהייתי סובר, שיש בזה משום אין מעבירים על המזוות, וכאן יש מזווה, משום ברועם הדרת מלך, כמשמע לן. So it takes us to a different Gemara completely. Here's the Gemara in Masechet Yomah. Person who sees the Kohen Gadol, okay, and he's reading on Kippur. He doesn't see the different animals that are brought as korbanot that are completely burnt, okay, and not because he's not allowed, rather because it's a distance for him, it's far away from him, okay, and both things are really happening simultaneously, more or less, so he can only see one or the other. The Gemara is not because he's not allowed, all right, rather Mishum Shahidi Sober Sheyesh Baze Mishum Ein Ma'abidin Amrut. I would think that I cannot pass up on one mitzvah for another mitzvah. And over here we're dealing with the mitzvah of Berob Am Hadrat Melech. Within the multitude of people is the glory of the king. So basically, if something is happening, and we talk about usually we use the mitzvah of Berob Am Hadrat Melech when we come to Mikra Megillah. When we're reading Megillah, we want to have as many people as possible, in the biggest knis in town, because that's where we glorify Borei Olam's name and what he does for us. Okay, so we have a situation like that. And the Rashi explains, she'en bazeh mishum ma'abir al mizvah, ma'achar she'eno asuk ba. There's no issue here of passing on the mizvah, because you as an individual, if you're not a Kohen and you're not the Kohen Gadol, you're not involved in that mizvah. You could see it, but you're not involved in it, so you're not passing on the mizvah. That's what Rashi explains. Now, if you're passing by the entranceway of a synagogue that is near you, and then you keep going your way to get to a further synagogue, since you're not involved in the mizvah yet, you didn't start praying, okay, so you're not involved in the mizvah. There's no concept here of your passing the mizvah. Now we can put the rest of what we learned in the Gemara. Amar Biyushua ben Levi. Asulu le'adam she'abor ahore bet ha'knesset b'sha'a she'asibur b'palelim. The Gemara tells you, if the pieces they're praying over there, you can't pass by it. Okay, if you're going to pass by, you have to go in. That's what the Gemara says. Because it looks like if you're passing by the kings when they're praying, it looks like you're basically pushing off this yoke, this burden of praying, and you don't want to be part of the sibur. Okay? Amar Abaye. Lo amru illa kishe'en bet ha'knesset ahayer ba'ir. But Abaye says this only applies when there's no other synagogue in town. There's another synagogue, then mutar. Okay, nobody's saying that you're pushing off the mizvah and you don't want to be part of the sibur, or you don't want to pray, or you don't want to accept all malchut shamayim. No, you're going to pray someplace else. Nobody's going to think ill of you that you passed it by, unless there's only one synagogue in town. Okay, this is the halakha. Rambam is very clear in Chot Tefillah. What does Maran say in Shulchan Aruch? Also, Siman Sadli, the same Siman that we talked about in the Magen Abraham. Asur la'abor mihus lebeit ha'knesset basad she'apetach patuach bo b'sha'a she'sibur b'palim. Where can you pass by the synagogue? By the entrance door that leads to where the people are praying. But if it's a side door, it doesn't really lead directly to them. You don't see them praying. You don't hear them praying from that side door. You can pass by that door. In other words, the main entranceway where everybody's walking in and out, you can see the people praying, the people can see you walking by. That's the difference. So now you're thinking, oh, we have doors to other doors to other doors in our synagogues today. Back then, you open the door, you in. That was it. Okay, so it's a little bit different today. Okay, so Maran again. Asul la'abur mihus lebeit ha'knesset basad she'apetach פתוח בו בשעה שסיבוב פנים, פני שנראה כופר כיוון שאינו נכנס פניהם. Because it looks like you're כופר, because you're not going in to pray with them. ואם יש בית כנסת אחר בעיר מותר, but if there's another synagogue in the
then you can pass by even the doors.
Even the main doors, yeah. Okay, so you see, each one of the Hachaim is qualifying this concept more and more, and they're explaining it in further detail. ולמד מכאן שאין בזה משום אין מעבידין על מזוות. So therefore, we learn from this that there's no concept here of in ma'abidin on mizvot that we're passing up on a mizvah. אלא שלכאורה יש להקשות על זה ממה ששנינו מזוות העומר להביאו מן הקרוב. לא ביקר הקרוב לירושלים, הביא את הזו מכל מקום אחר. ובגמרי הפרשו, יטעל שמזווה להביאו מן הקרוב, משום שאין מעבידין על מזוות. When you bring the עומר, you have to bring it from the sheaves of barley that are close by to Yerushalayim. But if you can't bring it from there, then you can bring it from someplace further. You're saying the same thing. You know, we're not stuck in a situation where we always have to be exactly close by. You can do things that are further away. Same thing with the mitzvah bet knesset. You can do something that is further away. Okay, let's skip that. All right, then we skip over here. All right. אולם נראה שהחינוך ברור שדווקא בדין כיסת העומר שאם לא יקסור מן השדה הקרובה הרי תתבטל המזווה ממנה לגמרי. לכן שייך לומר על זה אין מעבידין על מזוות. אבל בתי כנסת שבכל אחד מהם יש מניין תלמידים ואף אם אינו נכנס לשם לא תתבטל מזוות תפילה. So Hakham Obadiah was telling you that if nobody's going to be basically removing those sheaves of barley from that field that's close by, then you have to do it. Then it would be an issue of in ma'abidin al mizvot. Okay, but so therefore you cannot compare it to the bit knesset. Bit knesset, though, as long as you know each one definitely has a minyan of people praying there, then you have no issue whatsoever.
You're on your way to a shul, and on the way there's a smaller shul, and they say, "Oh, come, we need you. You're 10." You can't say, "Ah, I was playing."
No, then you have to go in.
You have to go in.
Then you have to go in. Yeah, I would say so. Not fun. People don't want to hear that. People just want to keep going their way. People like, you know,
Go the long way, so that you don't have to pass.
right. Well, therefore, if you're going the long way, you're not passing by the keys, then you have no problem at all. And that brings you back to the original law. In Ma'abidin al mizvot, and you don't pass by the entranceway of the kenis. If you're passing by a side door where nobody sees you, it's a different story. If you're passing by a back door where they generally don't open it, it's another issue. But you're passing by the main door, yeah.
Or even side door, and they say, "We need you."
Yeah.
I mean, like walking past the shore.
It was that minyan, but yeah.
Also in Bobby Driver.
Okay. Okay. So you can choose, you know, in this case where you know the synagogue has minyan without you and nobody's going to suspect you of throwing off the yoke of heaven, you could go to a further synagogue for the sake of getting sechar pesiot, the reward of extra steps. וכן תירס מרן החידה בספר פתח עיניים מנחות, וכן תירס בספר עושה שלום, וכן מסר בספר פתח האוהל למנחות שם. Okay, so the Hida explains the same thing. Skip this parenthesis, we don't need it. Okay, next paragraph.
Where's that the concept that Sidizim might be made?
There's nothing to do with this.
Different concept altogether?
Where does it fit in? Or how do you think it fits in? Let's put it this way.
I would think it fits in where the sooner you pray, the better.
Okay, we have 8 o'clock minyan here, 8 o'clock minyan there. What's the difference?
So we're passing by at 7:45 here.
Either way, you're getting to 8 o'clock minyan. You're not praying earlier.
Right. Assuming you're getting there on time.
What if it was for next? His point and his point.
Sorry?
What if it was to get there for next time?
So he's going to an Nesa minyan here or Nesa minyan there. What's the question?
No,
I still don't see the question.
the other one, he's getting there later. Next or 7 o'clock.
How much later do you think you're getting from one synagogue to another synagogue? Where are you?
Didn't have synagogue 5 minutes away from each other in every town.
Okay, let's say it was 15 minutes away. In that 15 minutes, you're not getting into the synagogue, putting on it to lay it to getting to the point where they're up to, it's not happening.
Passing by, you want to go to the 7 o'clock in Beit Torah, and you happen to be walking with the past Abba. They say, come in, or they don't even tell you to come in. They have a 6:45, Beit Torah has a 7.
Right.
So isn't it better to pray at the 6:45?
Why?
Since it's earlier.
I'm not understanding. What's Zidizim Makdim to what? Minha, you have an amount of time for Minha.
What is it? The sooner you do it, the better. Am I translating that correctly?
Those that are scrupulous try to do things sooner. That's what it would translate as.
Okay.
Okay.
But does not fall under that category.
I don't think so. No. Now, Zidizim Makdimim would fall under, there are 3 minyanim in my Beit Knesset. Okay? There's a 6 a.m., a 7 a.m., and an 8 a.m. Okay? So Zidizim Makdimim was, I'm Zariz, I'm going to 6 a.m. I'm not one of those lazy people going to 7 or 8. That's Zidizim Makdimim.
And if it takes you 2 hours to get to the 8, but the 6 o'clock is right next door to you.
You should definitely be going to the 6 o'clock. Why would you be spending 2 hours to go to the 8
I
o'clock?
like that one better.
You like that one better. So the Teshuvah of the RADBAZ, which we may or may not get to, which we're probably not going to get to, but we'll try to touch upon, will deal with issues of what you like better.
Or you want to get more ritual for the further away it is.
Okay. So you have to decide what you prefer. First of all, none of these things are obligatory. Zidizim Makdimin is not obligatory. Sechar Pesiyot is not obligatory. So you have, now, praying is obligatory. Okay? The question now, and we've touched upon this before, is praying with a minyan obligatory? Okay? And we're going to see further on where we have certain Hakham quoted that it's not obligatory. So that throws everything you have to say at the water. All right, let's continue. So we're on page 43.
Joey, what's interesting is that the question opened up with a woman who's praying every day in a Beit Knesset.
That's right. I thought somebody would have commented over here, but nobody
And
did.
we know that was almost never the case. I mean, she must be a very high caliber woman to pray every day.
She was an almana.
Okay, but to pray every day.
Sam, let's keep that in mind. She was an almana. She probably was on her own. She had nothing else to do. Her only interaction with society, okay, and connecting with Borei Olam was probably going to the Knesset in the morning. What else was she doing as an almana? That's why I think it's not, that's why I think they bring the specific story and they make sure to mention, that's why they mention she's an almana, because it wasn't the average woman. The average woman was very busy taking care of her home, taking care of her husband, taking care of her children, what have you. This woman was really, it would seem, on her own. She had nobody to deal with. She had nothing to do in the home. Whatever she needed to prepare, let's say, for her own personal meals, or cleaning up was minimal, and she could have done it after she finished praying. That's why I'm reading the story. As far as women praying, we saw that there were cases in the past where women even, had their own, if you want to call it, female minyanim. That we saw the story from Rabbi Yosef Mesas, that he brought us a incident from Spain where the women would go earlier in the morning than the men, and they would pray on their own in the Beit Knesset, and only then they would go home to wake up their husbands and their children. Okay, so the women were involved in tefillah at an earlier time even. Okay, so it's not so far-fetched. In our day, though, it's more far-fetched. We don't see all women praying. We definitely don't see women going to Knesset on a daily basis. We see them go on Shabbat, but even then, not most of them. So yes, compared to our day, it is something that is extremely unique or even odd. Yes, David, I'm sorry.
That's the exception. This is not a daily case. See on days like
this is daily. He says daily. The story of Araseh bechol yom. The story of the Gemara is daily. Okay, she was there every day.
These people did not will go on Purim or.
But this is bechol yom.
Kippur.
Bechol yom. One more time. Bechol yom. Okay. You know women that go to Knesset every day? Okay. Done. Anything else, Sam?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. We'll continue with Teshuvah. והנה הגאון רבי אברהם אבגדור בשאלות שבועות זכור לאברהם חשב להוכיח מהגמרא הנזכרת לעיל, שיטת המפרשים בתוספות, ובכמה מקומות שבמצווה אחת לא שייך לומר אין מעבירין על המזוות, ורק בשתי מצוות שנזדמנו לידו אין לו להעביר על מצווה הקרובה אליו. So this is very important. This comes back to Victor's question of Zirizin Makdimin and how it will fit in or not fit in. Over here, Hakham Obadiah Yosef, okay, is quantifying or what is in Ma'abirin HaMizvot. Tells you in Ma'abirin HaMizvot is not when you're dealing with the same Mizvah. It's rather when you're dealing with two completely different Mizvot. Do you pass up on one to do another one or vice versa? And how does it fit into that? That's what he's dealing with. Two Mizvot that come to your attention at that very same moment. Can we pass on one to do another? How does it weigh out? And he goes back to the Gemara to push it out. שיש בזה משום אין מעבירין על מזוות. But the Gemara in Menachot shows us otherwise that when we deal with Kesirat HaOmer, when we're cutting these sheaves of barley, okay, we're harvesting, you know, that have we deal with the issue of ein ma'abirin al mizvot. If we bring it from the closer field or from the further field, ולכן העימית המעשה שבגמרא באופן שלא הייתה סליחה לעבור על פתח בית הכנסת קרוב, אבל לא הייתה סליחה לעבור שם, היה אסור לה לעבור הלאה משום שכר פסיעות. So Rabbi Abigdor takes us back to the initial story of this almana, of this widow who was going to a further synagogue, to the Midrash of Rabbi Yohanan, and he says if she actually passed by the entranceway of the other synagogue that was closer to her, then it would be a problem, and she would have to enter and not go to the further one for the sechar pisi'ot. It's all about passing by that entranceway. But if she didn't, that's probably the case in the initial story from Gemara Sulha. And because of that, she therefore was exempt from entering that mizvah. She wasn't considered being somebody who's, basically passing on the mizvah to go to another mizvah, or another place rather. כתב הגאון הראשון לציון רבי חיים אברהם גגין בספר מנחת טהורה. אולם לפי מה שמבואר בגמרא והפוסקים לעיל, שגם באופן שעובר סמוך לפתח בית הכנסת, מותר לו ללכת אל בית הכנסת האחר הרחוק יותר, מוכח שגם באופן שכזה אין לאסור משום אין מעבירין על מזוות, הואיל ואינו עוסק עדיין במזווה. It comes back to the same point that if you actually aren't involved in the mizvah yet, you're not praying yet, so it wouldn't be considered מעבירין על מזוות. וגם אין המזווה מתבטלת שאפשר להתקיים על ידי האחרים. And the mizvah is not being abandoned because other people are doing the mizvah. There's a minyan going on in that beit knesset, and the mizvah is being fulfilled. And over here we said all the more so the issue of sechar pisiot. بعين مواد كاتن كتير في اسمع قال لي بخد لي يكون بكتيب ورحيين بتقداس كان المزفاش ان شاء الله عصوتا الى حريم كان المزفاش ان شاء الله عصوتا الى حريم وما شحال يجوز كل امر مقدور شان الحق وتشي شات وقاعد الدين بيبي وحنا شبه حلقه تبرتها توبه باللي بال دو حب شد بدار مش يصير معصبو يمكن هيالو البي حنان الميداش هذا الباب اللي كان قروبي وتر عديف هياخد بقى شنو علامه منه دبار دبره مدينه ابراهام كده because there's another thing he's commenting in parentheses on Rabbi Abraham Abigdor and on the story from the Gemara. If the issue in that Gemara in Sotah that Rabbi Yohanan is asking the woman, the widow woman, walking in, she told him, I want to come here for Sechar Pisiot. If he felt there was a problem of Be'im Abinid on this vote, he would have told her right away. We would have knocked the whole story out. We would have had a tissue bar over here to deal with, and we're done. Since the Gemara and Rabbi Hanan didn't bring it itself, so obviously it's not an issue, because we know that Kinesis is functioning on its own with or without her. And obviously she doesn't fit into the Mizvah, so also doesn't apply.
In terms of Mizvah, that can be done all day aherim. What mitzvah are we talking about?
The mitzvah of Kaddish, of Kedusha, of Barechu.
Those are mitzvot?
Those are mitzvot. Was it considered mizvot?
Of tefillah?
We didn't say tefillah, I said kaddish. Of aniyat amin.
The other man is 613 years old. I'm asking.
Definitely the Rabbana.
Praising God. Just, you know.
Not everything is, I wouldn't say, the way we use the term mizvot isn't basically limited to 613 to 613. It's not. There are many things that are considered as mizvot. Okay. Again, mizvah is a command. Okay. You have to think what the word mizvah means. Sivui. That's the shortest of it.
Right.
So are we commanded to answer amen? Yes, we're commanded to answer amen. In what context, when, how, what, why? That's a little bit different.
But that's only command to enter amen within minyanim. And then that opens up a whole question, are you obligated to go to minyanim?
Right. So we're gonna get to that. And like we said before, you're not committed. We've shown it time and time again.
Right.
You're not obligated. If you know somebody that never goes to minyan, you can't look at the guy as an abadian. Okay, he's not an abadian because he doesn't go to minyan. He doesn't. He's purish sibur. It's a different issue. Okay, he doesn't want to include himself among the congregation. That's a whole other problem. Sorry.
It's me.
Joey, a quick comment, okay?
Please.
This concept of En Ma'abirim ala mitzvot, the way I understand it, the way I remember learning it, is when you have two mitzvot, okay, and you want to prefer, you should prefer the first one over the second one. In this case, it's one mitzvah. She's going to pray.
Right.
She's not. It's not that she's passing this synagogue and like going to whatever to go buy kosher meat or something like that. In this case, it's one mitzvah, the same mitzvah. You're just preferring to do it in a certain place other than the one closer to you, as opposed to two different mitzvot. Like let's say we have tefillin and talit, okay? So they tell you, if you know, in ma'avirim, you take out the talit first, so you don't put on tefillin and then that's when you have two mitzvot. In this case, it's one mitzvah.
And that's exactly what Hakham Obadiah Yosef said in Zifur Abraham.
Okay.
Okay, if you'll see it, you'll see it on the top of page Mim Dalet. Okay.
Joey,
Yeah.
question
Please.
that's bothering me. What's doing? Good morning. Question that's bothering me. Sechar pesiot versus the word misvah. We always interpret the word sachar versus misvah as different. And I might have missed this because I know I missed the first few minutes. But she says, velo sechar pesiot yeshli. How do we translate that word?
As a question. She asked as a question.
Right. But the word sachar versus the word of misvah, the mikan lamad hamagen Avraham, that is misvah, versus sechar pesiot. One is sechar. Okay, so a person can do that and opt to do it. But the word misvah sounds much more, I don't know, in terms of a term of misvah lalechet. Why not sachar? A person gets sachar for going there. Why the word misvah? Misvah lalechet litpal v'knesset harachok yoter.
So I don't think I have an exact answer. Okay. But sechar pesiot, I think it's something, you're doing it anyway, but now you want to get this reward for going further away, let's say. Now, the question is, why do you get a reward for going further away? It's something, that it's been ingrained in us since we're children. Oh, you get sechar pesiot. It's raining outside on Shabbat, and it's hard to rain and to walk to Knis. So, but you're going to get sechar pesiot. What exactly does it mean? I don't know. Okay. Whereas in mizvah is you have a mizvah to do something, you're doing it regardless, or the mizvah is happening in either case. Now, or maybe I'm not understanding your question, but I can't really explain it otherwise. I don't know enough. It's something I think I would have to look into.
Rabbi, are you asking why you're using sachar pesiot and sachar mitzvah interchangeably?
Do you hear it, David?
Yes, that word. Yes, the word, yes, David, that's exactly what I was looking for. Like David is saying. Why the word mitzvah? Mitzvah ללכת על בית רחוק יותר.
I'm sorry,
Mitzvah
Rabbi
is-
Nathan, you keep fading in and out. I didn't hear the last few words.
Sorry, how about now?
Good.
The word mitzvah,
Mhm.
interpreting the word mitzvah within halacha. Mitzvah ללכת versus this
Mitzvah
idea.
what?
Mitzvah
Again, you said mitzvah,
ללכת.
and then I don't hear you after the word mitzvah.
Oh man, okay, my connection might not be good. Okay, my apologies.
No, just raise your voice.
Mitzvah ללכת,
Lalechet,
he
okay?
says, מפני שיש בזה שכר פסיעות. How has sechad pesiot become the word mitzvah? That's my question. Are we using the word loosely, the word mitzvah here? That we have a mitzvah lalechet because there's sechad pesiot? Does sechad indicate a mitzvah?
So your question is on the Lashon of the Magen Abraham.
Yes.
Okay, so listen, Magen Abraham says, if there are two synagogues in a person's city, Mizvah lalech להתפלל בבית הכנסת הרחוק יותר, okay, it's a mizvah, will you leave that word in Hebrew? Mizvah to go walk to the synagogue, to go pray in the synagogue that is further from him, because in that he has a reward of the steps taken. So your
I'd rather
question
the word tov. I want the word tov. Tov. Tov lalechet להתפלל. Why mitzvah?
I don't know why. I don't have an answer for you. If anybody has an answer, please chime in. I don't have one.
It's similar to the question, I find it similar to the question that I was asking before, but you had answered it differently.
Right, because he's asking a different question.
You're saying mitzvah here,
No, his question is, why is he using the word mitzvah? It's a very different question than your question, the way I see it.
okay.
I think it's
have
something
an
that can be
idea.
looked in. I'm
Can I
sorry,
give
who's
you-
that?
David Gindi, let me give you my video.
Yes, David, good morning.
Good morning. I think I have a simple idea. Why don't we go to the simplest, the simplest part? Tefillah is a mitzvah. So maybe he's saying mitzvah because because the whole root of this is the mitzvah is the tefillah, not where the prayers are or sooner or later, just simple. It's a mitzvah for tefillah. So he's saying mitzvah. Could it be?
I'm not understanding, honestly.
Okay, so
You see, let's watch it, David, look at the Lashon, look at the text itself. Mizvah lalechet, not mizvah titpalel, mizvah lalechet litpalel. It's a mizvah to walk to pray.
okay, so take out the middle word for a second, put it in parentheses, mitzvah litpalel. So then
Right,
there's a
mitzvah
mitzvah, there's a secondary mitzvah to walk to go to knis. You got to pray. You have a mitzvah to go to pray b'sibur. Is it possible that that's an answer?
But it's not a mitzvah.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to say. At least, or rather, maybe I won't use the word it's not a mitzvah. I would say it's not a hiyub. Okay? There's no obligation to pray b'sibur.
Okay. So then the word lalechet removes my answer as valid because it takes out because the lalechet is the point here.
I think so.
Okay.
Because the sechar pisiot also goes back to the lalechet, right?
Correct.
The pisiot are the steps, so the steps have to go to the lalechet.
Correct. So then,
That's why
okay.
I'm not
I was trying to
positive how to
simplify.
answer Rabbi Nathan.
Okay, I was trying to help you out there.
No, I appreciate it. Well, we'll come up with something. We'll have to look further into it. Okay? Something to be looked into during the course of the week. All right. Let's return to where we were. We're on page Mim Dalet. Gam Halom. Gam Halom Mosseri that going to be Moshe Pardo. בשאלות שלו שמו משה, שנשאל על מנהג שנהגו לעבור דרך בית הכנסת האיסטנבולים, אשר בעיר העתיקה בירושלים. So we all know that in the old city of Yerushalayim, there are the four Sephardic synagogues that are basically one compound. I'm sorry? Somebody is, go on mute, guys. there are 4 synagogues in the old city. They're all interconnected. You enter one and you walk through one to get to the other, basically. Okay, so Rabbi Moshe Pardo, he was rabbi in Yerushalayim, later in Alexandria, back to Yerushalayim. In any case, so he writes, he was asking question. על המנהג שנהגו לעבור דרך בית הכנסת האיסטנבולים אשר בעיר העתיקה בירושלים. להיכנס לפלב בית הכנסת הגדול על שם רבן יוחנן בן זכאי. אם אין בזה משום אין מעבירין על המזוות. Okay, so since you're entering one synagogue to get to the other synagogue, wouldn't that be in ma'abirin al mizvot? Because you walk in, you're already in the synagogue. You're not in a hallway. You're actually in the knis. Okay, so wouldn't that be in ma'abirin al mizvot? Ve'ahad sheherich lim'anito ha'ila bekoha dehetira. So after he went through a whole lengthy discussion with the person asking him the question, he came up bekoha dehetira. He came up with a heter. Okay, that we don't have to be concerned with this issue whatsoever. And especially so when you have an established spot, a general place where you pray in the Knesset of Yohanan ben Zakkai. And he found support in the words of the Hida and Birkei Yosef. שתפילה בבית הכנסת אינה דרך חיוב גמור אלא למזווה מן המובחר. And he added that praying in knis is not hiyub, okay, but rather mizvah min hamubhar, which is a preferable way to fulfill the mizvah. ונחשב הדבר כהכשר מזווה, and it's a way of making the mizvah more kosher, if you will. ובזה לא שייך הדין שאין מעבירין על מזוות. And since that's the case, the concept of אין מעבירין על מזוות does not apply. ושכן כתב הגאון רבי יהודה נגר בספר אהודי יהודה. רבי יהודה נגר wrote the same thing. ועין עוש שבות זרע יעקב בן נעים, ששבות דרכי מלכיין. עד כאן תוכן דבריו. והסכים עם עוד ההלכה הגאון הראשון לציון רבי חיים משה אלישר בשנות משה. Okay, Rabbi Chaim Moshe Eliashar, who was the Rishon Sion, in his book Shemo Moshe Ha'ish, also agreed with him. בתשובתו הרמתה הוא באה גם בשל שוד דברי מנחם למהר"ם, okay, Rabbi Menachem Kasher. Okay, Rabbi Menachem Kasher was if you want to call him a very important Talmid Hakham in the past few generations, who didn't just write pirushim or look for writing a teshuvah. Rather, he did archaeological work in halakha. He went looking for unknown writings, for works written by hachamim that were never published, and he would quote them to create a greater history of what halakha is. His pirush and the Torah, called Torah Menachem, is, I believe, 24 volumes.
So what?
He recently passed away, not long ago. He wrote on so many different topics, but Torah Menachem, basically, he brings all the different midrashim and shows how the midrashim are interrelated and how various hachayim that you think never quoted midrashim actually quoted unknown midrashim, but they were known to them in their day, and they weaved them into their pirush. He has a lot of interesting, his pirush on the Haggadah, also very interesting. He brings us many ancient concepts from the Mishnayot and from the Gemara, showing how they were used to create the Haggadah the way we know it today. So Rabbi Menachem Kasher is a very interesting personality, and he also brings the same concepts as Rabbi Moshe Pardo and Rabbi Chaim Moshe Eliashar and Rabbi Yehuda Nagar, etc. So what Hakham Obadiah Yosef is telling us. Rabbi Obadiah Hidayah. Okay, we know Rabbi Obadiah Hidayah. He was the brother-in-law of Hakham Yaakov Kasin alav shalom, and his Yaskil Abdi. And he also wrote about this at length, and he also allowed it. And what was his conclusion of Rabbi Obadiah Hidayah? And we see this day in, day out. It's a regular occurrence here in Yerushalayim. We have 4 synagogues. They each are basically you enter one to go to the other, to go to the other, to go to the other. And those individuals that pray in the innermost synagogue, they pass through the outer synagogues. We never had anybody open their mouth for hundreds of years. Obviously, they have the reasons for it. And he quotes in the end, Moshe Pardo, saying that this is mutar, it's not an issue, there's no mizvah, no hiyub rather to pray with the minyan, and it's only mizvah minham if you want to call it anything, and therefore it's not an issue of man ma'abin yam mizvot, and the person has a regular place to pray. So all these things come together to show us that. ועיין עוד בשל שבועות ישכיל עבדי, של שבועות הרסבי, מכל שכן אם יש טעם נכון, עדיף ללכת בית הכנסת הרחוק, יותר מפני של ציבור. Now here, this is Victor, this is you. ומכל שכן, and all the more so, אם יש טעם נכון, if there's a good reason, ועדיף, okay, to prefer ללכת בית הכנסת הרחוק יותר, to go to the further synagogue, מפני, why? שהשליח סיבור שם הגון וירא שמיים רבים, דבר החזן, the guys more ירא שמיים, ויש לו נעימה וכולו ערב, and he has a pleasantness and a nice voice, יותר מאשר סיבור שבית הכנסת הקרוב אליו, better than the synagogue that's close by, שאז בוודאי אין בזה משום אין מעביר המזוות. So therefore, surely there's no concept of אין מעביר המזוות, because you clearly will state that you prefer going to that Kinis, and everybody knows.
The further one for a reason. No one's gonna go to the further one for no reason.
That could be a bad reason.
But that's.
You want to talk to your friends.
Okay, so it has to be a reason.
It exists, and we know that exists.
Or exactly the one's close by. Right, that's more common. If you don't want to go to the close by.
No, it's more that you want to talk to your friends. Let's finish this first one. مش كتاب بقى يسبب شوات تبرم ملكية الحلقي شون بعد رباق يشتغل دم ين سخر بسيود لأنه وصل يهاجت سخر بسيعود فجاءون بيشمعون جرينفيلد بيش شوات مع الشاق كتاب لحلوقة إبراهيم مجين إبراهام بيشين سخر بسيود شياخ إلا بأوفان شبيت الكنيسة الشيني يشام ربع عام. Now this Rabbi Shimon Greenfield, I don't know anything about him unfortunately, he argues with the Magin Abraham. Okay, he says no, there's no sechar pisiyot. I don't buy it, he tells you. Okay? And Sechar Pisiyot Shayach, the concept of Sechar Pisiyot it does not apply. Illa be'ufan she'bebet HaKnesset Sheni yesham rob am. Unless the other synagogue, the one that's further away that you're going to, has a rob am, has a greater multitude of people. Okay? Therefore, you're coming more people together to, to praise Borei Olam, to give glory to Borei Olam. That makes a difference. Or Shilumdim Sham Torah, or they learn Torah over there. Okay, the combination of Torah and Tefillah makes the Tefillah much more acceptable, or a better Tefillah, he feels. Okay, possibly because they understand the Tefillah better, because they learn Torah. Or Shehayu Sham Anashim Hagunim Yoter, or better quality people are there. Okay, you could have a synagogue, nearby synagogue, quality of people is somewhat, and then you have a synagogue where you have better quality people. But if that's not the case, so you don't have a really good reason, Rabbi Greenfield feels, then you don't have this reward of Pisi'ot. Possibly. I'm not familiar with him or with what it was the Shavuot, so I can't say. But the Hakham Obadiah Yosef, is going to throw him out anyway. Because now I don't see his reasoning and his words, applicable to halakha. What he was saying. He put somebody else who also was confused by where Rabbi Greenfield came from, and he didn't like it. But we don't know what Yehuda Ya'alei is saying. And Hayim Bayad, Ish Masliach, he quotes us a bunch of different books, but we don't know exactly what they're saying on the subject, if they're agreeing or if they're not agreeing, so we can't really comment on it. But basically, Hakham Obadiah Yosef, at least for our purposes, doesn't really go for the approach of Rabbi Greenfield. Hakham Obadiah Yosef's conclusion, even though he brings up a two-page footnote afterwards, his conclusion, even somebody who has a synagogue in his vicinity, in his immediate neighborhood, he's allowed to go to a synagogue that is further away from his home. And the concept of does not apply. He is not considered as somebody who is passing on a mitzvah. And all the more so, he has sechar pisiot. He gets a reward for taking the extra steps.
He would recommend it, not only allow it, but recommend it.
Yes, he does.
We should all be praying in the further second.
Well, now, again, I wouldn't say that. I would say only if there's a good reason. I would still agree with it. There has to be a positive.
You can go to Rabbi Nathan Torts, all the way out there.
No, it's not pisiot.
Sechar pisiot, but
That's
what?
my reason.
Okay, if you really like it,
I don't know.
okay.
Then I
You may
can't
not
pray
like
by
it.
me. I have to go with my minyan's in my house. I have to leave
No
my
problem.
house.
I may kill myself on the way, but I may faint, I may pass out, but yeah. So sechar pisiot wouldn't apply. You're going to further one. Let's walk to Brooklyn every day then, you know. ומכל מקום כתב הגאון רבי דוד פרדו בספרי דבריו שלא נאמרו דברים אלו אלא באדם רגיל. These things only apply to a regular person. אבל בתלמיד חכם השוקד על דלתות תורתנו הקדושה, somebody who studies Torah, you know, on a regular basis, you know, in a very I wouldn't call it a deep way, but in a more serious fashion. נכון יותר שיתפלל בית הכנסת הקרוב אליו. The Hakham should play someplace that's closer to him, כדי שלא יתבטל מלימודו. So he should not waste time from his learning. שזה יותר חשוב לאין ערוך לגבי שכר פסיעות. Okay, this is much more important, and it stands, you know, in intrinsic value far greater than the concept of שכר פסיעות. Talmud Torah, and we know Talmud Torah obviously is tantamount or equal to greater than all the other things. Agrees with that. שמצויות שם נשים הלכות בכדי פריסות, יוחס צדיק דרכו לכם בדרך הקרוב. Now, if you're going to walk through to the further one and you're going to see things that you shouldn't be seeing, you should definitely not be going. You're not getting sechar pisiot, you're getting sechar abirot. Okay, you should be going to the one that's closer to you where you're not going to see things that you shouldn't be seeing. זה עדיף הרבה יותר משכר פסיעות, פן לא יוכל לכבוש עיניו, להיות עושה עיניו מאוד ברע. You're not going to be able to shut your eyes and stop yourself from seeing things that you shouldn't see. והשאלה של סנדר קו. כתב שלא שיהיה לך פסיעות, אלא כשהולך רגלי, ולא כשנוסע ברכב. Now, the Torah Lishma is interesting, writes that sechar pisiot only applies when you're walking by foot, not when you're going in a vehicle. תעיין עוד בשלושות סיס אליעזר.
Why?
Pisiot, steps. He's taking it literally.
You're making an effort.
Steps. I'm sorry?
You're making a physical effort.
Right. Once you're driving, what's the difference?
What about electric scooter?
Okay, so Rabbi Nathan, when you make something called the tamim, then you call the holchim b'tamim. It's good for you, okay? So that's basically the end of Hakham Obadiah Yosef's teshuvah. I don't think we need to get into the lengthy footnote. He deals with a few other issues over there. Basically, he's talking about, you know, establishing a place to pray, etc., what have you. Now, we have, following this in the PDF that you guys have, we have a teshuvah from the RADBAZ. The RADBAZ, I'm going to summarize it because it's already after 11 and everybody has things to do. I know they have things to get to. So the RADBAZ basically, as we know, was born in Spain, okay? And he was part of those that were exiled in 1492 from Spain, he got to Egypt, and from Egypt later on towards the end of his life, he moved to Israel, to Safed. And he lived about 100 years. He was a great Hakham. He wrote way over 2,000 teshuvot. Okay, his teshuvot are quoted far and wide until today. He was the rabbi of the rabbis, and all different types of questions were posed to him. And this is a time period where people came from so many different areas, both in Spain and Portugal, as well as from other areas, and they ended up in Egypt. They also ended up in other places, but since he was mainly, his stint as a rabbi was, many more years in Egypt than other places, most of his teshuvot are dealing with things presented to him in Egypt, either from people that were in Egypt or people outside Egypt that wrote to him while he was in Egypt. And so we're talking about approximately 1,500 over here. And so you had different synagogues set up by different groups. And so now you had a group of, we'll call them Spanish people, and a group of North African people. Okay? The Spanish people, no, we're talking about Egypt. Spanish people, okay, were coming in slowly, in drips and drabs over the course of years till they got from one place to the next place to the next place and settled, whereas the North Africans, since North Africa, Egypt is technically part of North Africa, but it's a different region and different mindset. Those North Africans were already coming to Egypt from beforehand. North African people already set up a synagogue in Egypt based upon their ways, their minhagim, their nosah, their tunes, whatever it may be. Spanish Jews slowly came in. They found the synagogue. They started praying there. Okay. Now, as time went on, okay, at least 3 years, even longer in this case, there's more Spanish Jews, and now there's Spanish Jews that have been part of the North African congregation want to extract themselves and make their own knis. Okay. The question now is posed to the RADBAZ. Can they do that? Can they separate? Okay. The RADBAZ, first and foremost, he doesn't like separating. He comes out very much against it. He says people need to learn how to work with one another. If you don't have real intrinsic reason, a mahloket that cannot be rectified, that that is causing people to rift, the ahdud of Am Yisrael is more important than anything else. You could put aside these petty differences that I came from this city in Spain, I came from that city in Spain, I came from this city in Portugal. It was all a bunch of nonsense. We're Am Yisrael. We have to be united. We're coming to and it's all the more so we're no longer part of these places. We left them already. Okay. Yeah, you may be holding on to vestiges of of minhagim, of tunes, but they're going to dissipate. You should come together as a nation. If you cannot, and you have no choice because you can't stand seeing each other, you can't look at each other, you get disgusted and you lose kavanah, that's when you can separate yourself. Okay, so he's not a fan of breakaway minyanim, very much against it. He allows it in the end in a case where it's needed, but he doesn't like breakaway minyanim. He likes the ahdut of minyanim. He likes the people coming together. Now, it says though, if you have a place where not only that, but you have a particular Hakham prays in this particular synagogue, and when you see this Hakham pray, because you see the kavanah he prays with, okay, and you have a great respect for him, that brings you to greater heights in your tefillah, then you could leave and go pray with that person. Okay, and go to pray with a different place. It wouldn't be considered a breakaway, but it's helping you to pray better. Okay, so this is the way that the RADBAZ is looking. Again, I'm only taking a small part of this teshuvah. He deals with a lot of different issues. He looks at the synagogue as being, the hub of the community, and you're basically breaking yourself away from the community. You don't want to get involved with with supporting the aniyim of the community, because each synagogue was dealing with its own aniyim. Now you were supporting these aniyim over here. They relied on the money that came in on a yearly basis from you, and now because you're leaving it, the aniyim here are going to have less money, and the aniyim of the other synagogue are going to end up with more money. Where there has to be a certain balance. Because he looks at each synagogue as its own separate community dealing with its own particular aniyim. He deals with a lot of different topics. Now, let's say your father was already praying in this big Knesset, okay? And because he came, let's say now from Spain 10 years ago, and now your father passed away, but you already were praying there with him all this time. You're going to leave where your father prayed. You're going to leave it alone because you think you're better than him. If your father was okay with this, you should also be okay with this. So what we have in our community today, so every Tom, Dick, and Harry decides to make their own breakaway minyan or their own synagogue or their own, separate minyan within the same building, that RADBAZ would have come out vehemently against it. It's not something that he would prefer. He would prefer us building up the synagogues and having more people united and more people praying together. So this is also something to think about in our whole concept of Sechad Pesiot, Hamizvot, the Hadut of Am Yisrael. And this is something that our Hachamim were very big upon. Okay, if we go through the generations, we see the Hachamim were always looking to unite the people of the community and not to break them away. So we're talking about there was one synagogue, in the city, or two synagogues in the city. That second synagogue in the city was generally far away. Because it's far away, that's a different story. But to build synagogues all around each other, it's not right. It goes against the concept of Ahdut and Birom al Hadrat Melech. And this, I think, is a very important lesson. And when we have a chance, we should actually look at this Tisha B'Av of the RADBAZ, because we don't have a chance to study the Tisha B'Av of the RADBAZ too often. Because Tisha B'Av are either very lengthy or extremely short, but they carry a lot of weight. And for the Hachamim of today, Sephardim and Ashkenazim alike, 500 years later, to constantly be quoted. You can't open the book of Shalot Shemot today without seeing at least one Tisha B'Av of the RADBAZ being quoted. It's impossible. Everybody quotes them. That tells you what kind of quality of material we're dealing with. And these are Hachamim. We need to study them. The concept is extremely prevalent.
More than ever. Especially
Yes.
Because COVID is another
Yes.
factor in this.
Yes, COVID created minyanim, house minyanim, that we should be back to praying in Knis, and people still want to keep their house minyanim. They don't want to be part of the Sidur.
Right.
They specifically think, I don't want to come back to Knis. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with the rabbis. I don't want to deal with the people. I don't want to deal with the drives. I don't want to deal with aliyot. I don't want to deal with the mishaberachs. I don't want to deal with it. That's what's going on.
Not comfortable, but they got
Complacent.
complacent.
Yeah, complacent.
People do have grievances with the community. Now the leadership of the future deal with them. They should be inviting them back.
They should be
We
invited
miss
back.
you. What can we do to accommodate you, etc.
Right.
Can't, it's not acceptable to have all these splintered units.
No.
And you get again, that's why I don't love the summer house minyanim. Is that if you make it regular, something that's normal, that the Knis is not the center of the community or that sub community, then you lose your Yahadut.
Yeah.
You really lose your
At the
Yahadut.
No, you definitely
I'm not a
do.
huge fan either, but at the same time, people that don't end up going because there are house minyanim. Unfortunately, that's the case, but that's also reality.
You think so?
I think so.
I don't know. I think.
I'm not part of that group, but there are people like this.
I think on a Friday night here in Jersey, where the synagogues would be further away from you,
Yeah.
you're tired, you don't want to walk back and forth. I can understand,
Right.
easily understand
Right.
house minyanim, backyard minyanim for
Right.
Friday night.
But now,
Outside
even in
of-
Brooklyn, they're doing. when there's a
Outside
case
of
across
that,
the
I
street.
don't.
Right, even in Brooklyn now, when there's a case across the street, they're doing the house minyanim 2 doors down.
Yeah, that.
That's
I
a
don't
little
know.
much, in my opinion.
Anyway.
I
any
think-
comments?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point from the RADBAZ, because I could see it in my own hometown, Ra'anana. We have, it's a smaller, it's not Tel Aviv. I think we have something like 70 knesses, okay?
Wow.
A lot of them are small. By the way, the joke about Temanim is, like every 2 Temanim have their own knes, because they don't always get along. So what happens is a lot of them are under budgeted, they're fighting for funds. Then if the Koreh Sefer Torah did not show up, or he has a problem, or he's going out of town, you have to start finding somebody else. And, everybody's fighting for the same resources. And I think it's a very important idea to have people united. And, we'll have one, Berov Am Hadrat Melech. And also, you don't have to fight, with different, again, nobody will get 100%. We have the Shamis, and we have the Syrians, and we have the Lebanese, and we have this. And I say, let's try to get together and do something uniform. Okay, you give in a little bit, this guy will give in a little, but then we all have the resources. We can all do something. Because then, you want to, that's my feeling.
I happen to agree with you, especially in Eretz Israel, Sam, where you are. It's extremely important because kibbutz galuyot, the people are coming together. Not everybody from the same Aida, is near each other. And, I think people need to know how to put aside their differences, put aside, petty, I wouldn't call it petty minhagim, but petty differences to unite the minhagim. Many of the minhagim come from the same actual source, and they develop a little bit differently, and you could put certain things together. I think it's very, very important, and
when we discussed this actually 2 weeks ago about a similar concept, and we all said, this is only for this generation. In 2 or 3 generations, we're all going to be mixed over here. There won't be a pure SY, there won't be a pure Baghdadi, there won't be a pure this. We're all going to be mixed. It's not like in Brooklyn that a Syrian will only marry a Syrian, and an Egyptian will only marry an Egyptian. Doesn't work that way in Israel.
even over here, that's already fallen to the wayside. But as you said, in Israel, all the more so because, it's Am Yisrael for the Jewish people. Am Yisrael is all united. It doesn't make a difference what origin you come from. You end up marrying one another. You don't stay, especially in Israel, you don't stay close to home. You could grow up in Yerushalayim, then move to Tel Aviv. From Tel Aviv, you move to Hadera. From Hadera, you move to Be'er Sheva. And this family, is split up all around the country. So all the more so in Eretz Israel, you're going to have, this concept that the Rabbanut at one point tried to create, or rather the army tried to create of Mosseri Ahid, is going to become a reality.
Yes, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. It was a very nice class.
Thank you, Joey.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.